Chris here, and welcome to my channel, and welcome to a 5-day vlog to wrap up January. So we're this close to being done with January, and I believe I have read 46 books so far, so I think I'm going to break that 50 book mark in the month of January, which, like, what a way to start the year. As for what I'm going to read this week, I started Witchwood at the end of last week's vlog, and I got one chapter in, so I'm hoping to get this one. This would catch me up on this series. I would like to finish my reread of Mistborn. I kind of put it down due to the final book support group, so I am still on page 443, but I get the feeling that I'm probably going to rip through these, and I probably don't need to read 21 pages a day to finish it, so that's probably a good thing, considering 21 pages a day wouldn't finish it. But I think it's going to be really easy to finish, because I was definitely invested when I sat down. I'm on page, 334 of this chunker, so, we'll see if I can manage to pull that one off. And, of course, I need to finish this one. Highest priority, because I took my reward for phase 10. So I have to finish this one, because it's the last one on my TBR for January. As for what else I could read, I think it's called Honeybee Murder. It's the second book in the Honey Bear Cozy Mystery series. I read the first one last month. It's only 125 pages. It's an ebook, so it should be a really easy read. As for everything else, ta-da! So I have P.S. I Hate You, which is a romance and is probably the least likely to get read out of all of these because it's the one I'm least drawn to. I have the final 2 books of the Murder Most in Lady Lake series that I've been trying to read for months, so we'll see if I can get to those. Oh no, this is also on my Phase 10 TBR. Oops, I keep forgetting this is on there. So I also need to listen to The Greatest Kingdom, which is the third and final book in the Clock of Stars series. I would ask you to remind me of that, but by the time you see this, I will have either read it or not read it. Then I will definitely 100% be reading Into the Wild. I might even start this tonight. We'll see. But this is the buddy read I'm doing with Omi, and I get to dive back into one of my favorite series. And then I have 2 other books, and these are similar, sort of. So I have Love Beyond Body, Space, and Time, an Indigenous LGBT sci-fi anthology, and Circle of Love. These are both Indigenous books, obviously. And one of the prompts for the Read Queer All Year that is hosted by the Queer Lit Readathon is to read a book with 2 spirit representation. And when I was Googling, it said this one did, but then it also mentioned this one, and I've been looking at this one for a while, so I also got this one out of the library. So we'll see. I would like to get to both of them, but we'll see what I can do. So that is my giant stack of books. I believe I need to read 703 pages a day of what I mentioned if I want to finish my entire TBR. So I have a lot of reading to do. Plus, tomorrow I'm going, or later today, I guess, because it's 2:20 in the morning on the 27th, I'm going to hang out in the chat of Nicole's sprints and see if I can't edit last week's vlog and the week before, or the 5-day vlog from the period before. So I'm 2 vlogs behind as of midnight tonight. So I'm going to see if I can get some editing done on that. And then I also have a hair appointment tomorrow because we are getting rid of this lovely faded blue and purpleness, and I am going rainbow. And I think I've mentioned this before, and it's really, really hard to explain. But basically, the purple was on the top layer of my hair. So we took the top part of my hair and dyed it purple. And then the lower levels, we dyed blue. So what we're going to do is we're going to split it into 6 layers with going from the top part of my hair to the bottom part of my hair. So not like this. I'm hoping that makes sense. Because we're not going from top of my hair to the bottom of my hair. I'm saying the top of my hair to the bottom of my hair. When you're, so the top to the bottom. And what we're going to do, as I mess up my hair in this video, is go purple to red. And I'm going to have 6 layers of hair, and I will have a rainbow in it. So we're going to see how that works. So hopefully, by the time I check in, it will be amazing and fabulous, and I will be wearing my rainbow in my hair, which I'm very, very excited about because I have been massively struggling with all of the decisions that have come out and everything related to being trans in the current state of our country. So I'm literally going to wear my rainbow in my hair, and I'm very, very excited about it. So we're going to see how this goes, because that's going to eat into a lot of my reading time tomorrow. And like I said, it's already 2:20 in the morning, and I still have dishes to do before I can go to bed. And so I don't know how much reading I'm going to get done tonight, but we'll see. It's quite the stack. Fingers crossed I can get through most of it. And yeah, I will try to remember to check in Wednesday and give you an update and let you know how I'm doing. But you know me, it may end up being February 1st. So we'll see how it goes. I'm going to do my best. And hopefully I'll have a lot to update you on whenever it is I do check in with you. So it is Thursday, and I thought I would check in. It's like 1:45 in the morning, and I'm actually sitting here filming. Today was extremely rough. I am very, very much struggling with all of the attacks on trans people right now. So if I seem a bit off in any of my videos or on sprints or whatever, that's probably going to be a big part of why. It is also why I am on the verge of having read 50 books in the month of January. I think mainly because I keep escaping into books and trying to focus on things that suck less. Also, I got my hair done, so I now have rainbow hair. It's not exactly what I wanted, and it's not perfect because we kind of had to go to plan B because my hair decided it was going to turn this like cotton candy blue. I'll pop a picture up here. I'll have my hair on my head because we're getting ready to dye it. Because we had used the Danger Jones color remover on my hair, and it didn't really take the blue out, and it took the purple out, but it made the purple go blue. So I had all blue hair, and then we used regular bleach, and that made it the color in the picture. So we knew that the lighter colors probably weren't going to cover the blue, so we kind of pivoted, and she's never done anything like this before, so it definitely has rainbow tones. I definitely have all the colors in there. It's not exactly what I wanted, but I think it came out really, really well for the circumstances. And I'll insert a picture here of what it looks like in the sun so you can get a really good look at it because the lighting isn't best in my room. So that is what my hair looks like right now. I'm literally wearing my rainbows proudly in my hair. So very happy to have that at least. That did help, but man, is it draining to leave the house. So it has been an interesting week so far. My head is all over the place, so I apologize if I'm all over the place in this clip. So reading wise, I want to start by mentioning I finished The Honeybee Murder. This is the second book in the, Honey Bear Cozy Mystery series. And we follow Patty and George. And Patty runs the local pub, and George has bees that he uses to supply honey to Patty's pub where he makes mead with honey. So Honeybee Murders was the first book, and that's where you kind of get the name from. In this one, George has a new neighbor move in, and he is deathly afraid of bees, gets into an argument with George about George's bees, and then turns up dead from what looks to be anaphylactic shock, and there are bees in his house, which kind of points a finger at George. So George and Patty have to figure out who's trying to frame him. I gave this 3.75 stars. I enjoyed this mystery. I love that these books have autistic rep. George is autistic, and there are a lot of things that George does that I can really relate to. And I think it adds an interesting facet to these murders because you have a neurodivergent character, which means he processes everything differently, and I love that there is that representation in this book. Patty and George are both queer, so we have queer rep there. And I know that, I think their name is T. T uses they, them pronouns. And I know that there are definitely a couple of other characters who are queer. So there's lots of queer rep in this book as well. Well, this series as well. And I just really love all the representation. I think the reason this gets 3.75 and not higher is because it was short. I think it was maybe 120 pages. And I felt like I would have enjoyed it more had they had to kind of dig into things a little bit deeper, maybe had a few more suspects and it not been so quick to kind of figure out what happened and how we got there. And I think that brought my rating down, but I just love the diversity and the characters' relationships. And like I said, that on-page representation of being autistic, as it makes me feel so seen. So I will definitely be finishing this because as far as I know, it's a trilogy. So my goal is to read the third book in February so I can wrap this up. And this would be the third series I've finished by Dalia Donovan. I'm in the middle of a fourth one. I have started a fourth one, which I started before I started this one, but I kept reading this one and I didn't keep reading that one. So I'll have to go back to finish that one. But I've really enjoyed everything I've read by Dalia Donovan. All of her books have tons of queer rep throughout them, and every single one of them has an autistic character in them. So you get a lot of autistic rep in each of the books as well. So I enjoyed this. It wasn't my favorite, but I'm still having fun with the series and these characters and will definitely continue. Then Monday, after I got back from getting my hair done, I did my reread of Into the Wild and I gave this 4.5 stars. So I say this every time I read one of these, but if you're new to my channel, Warriors is a series that follow forest cats who live in clans and have to try to coexist. This is obviously the beginning of that story. In this one, we meet Rusty. He is a house cat who has dreams about hunting in the forest, and he heads out into the forest one day and ends up bumping into one of the forest cats. And they end up inviting him to join their clan. And well, that's an easy decision for Rusty. So he says yes, takes them up on their offer, and heads off to live in the forest with ThunderClan. And via Rusty, who is very quickly dubbed Firepaw, we get to learn all about life in the clans. And I had forgotten how much I love the way everything starts in this book. And it is so intriguing to see things, given that I'm in like arc 9 now, and there's so much that has happened with so many of the characters we've met in this book. Between the various arcs and the graphic novels and the novellas and the super editions and the field guides, we've learned so much about these characters throughout the series that it is super interesting to be back at the beginning and see our first introduction to them and to see how Firepaw's journey started way back when he was still just Rusty. And I just had so much fun with this. It was absolutely what I needed after the very draining day of being out at the hairdressers. And I will forever love this series. I'm buddy reading it with Omi, and I wanted to mention again that if you would like to come join us for that buddy read, there's a link to my Discord in the description below, and we'd love to have you. We will be reading book 2 in February, so there's still plenty of time to hop in and join us. And if you're going to read these and you like audiobooks, I would highly recommend trying to check those out because the audiobook narrator for this series is phenomenal. So 4.5 stars, really, really loved being back with these characters and very excited to continue on with Fire and Ice in February. Then I read The Greatest Kingdom, and I gave this 3.75 stars. So this is the third and final book in the Clock of Stars series. In this series, we follow Imogen and Marie, and in the first book, a moth leads them to a door, and they go through the door and end up in this whole other world, but the door disappears behind them. So they have no choice but to forge on and try to figure out where they are, what is going on, and how they can get back to their own world. And in book 2, we continue to follow their adventures, and in this one, we're obviously wrapping up the story of their adventures. I don't want to say too much more because anything else I say would be a giant spoiler, but we do get to see the end of Imogen and Marie's journey in this one. I don't think I liked it as much as the first 2, and it's really hard to say whether it is because of like the headspace I'm in, or I would have liked it more had I read it right after I'd read book 2, or if there was just something that didn't necessarily jive with me on this one. It was an easy read, and I was able to get through it really quick. It just didn't click with me the way I remember the first 2 doing so, and I'm highly tempted to unhaul these. Not because I didn't like them, but because I think I didn't like them enough to reread them. Therefore, it might be better if I give them to somebody who would appreciate them. And I certainly have plenty of little ones in my life that could use a good fantasy series. And I do think it is a very good fantasy series. So I may end up doing that. We'll see. Anywho, this one, like I said, it definitely wrapped up the story. I should also mention that in the first book, they end up meeting Milo, who is the prince of the kingdom they found themselves in. And he is very important to the story as well. And I believe we do get scenes from his POV in the first couple of books as well as Marie and Imogen. But don't hold me to that. It's been a minute since I've read the first book, but we do get to see things from his POV in this one. And I think that was part of my issue, was the fact that in this one, the girls weren't with Milo. So Milo was doing this thing over here, and we were seeing his story over here. And the girls were over here doing this thing over here, and we got to see their story over here. And I think I missed some of the camaraderie and friendship between the kids that I think we got to see demonstrated a little bit more in the first two books. Not that it wasn't in here, it was just different, if that makes sense. It's really hard to talk about without giving things away, but I think it was a good end to the series. It left me a little bit sad with how things ended. I don't know that I loved the ending, but I think it was a decent ending. I feel like it wrapped up everything it needed to wrap up, and I do think this is one I should probably let go, because these are chunky and it would give me some extra room on my middle grade shelves, and I do think a middle grader would really appreciate it. So probably going to unhaul these, but still enjoy the series and still would recommend it if it sounds interesting to you, or you know a little one who you think would jive with it. So all in all, not a bad series, and I get to check it off my series spreadsheet, which is very exciting. And it is one of my 3 trio of trilogies I needed to finish. So making progress on my Phase Out Your Series-a-thon hardboard. And that is all I finished, which is slow for me so far in January, but I have made progress in several other books. And okay, we've got a Cielo. Okay, I'm going to need you to not knock the camera because you keep doing that, and that's very annoying. Okay? No knocking the camera. Do you have litter in your hair? No, snot. I think she has snot in her fur. Somebody sneeze on you? She's so helpful, y'all. So first, I'm going to mention that I made progress in The Color of Revenge. I read this the other night on Sprints, and I have made it to page 89. This is the 4th book in the Inkworld series, and I think I definitely would have benefited from a reread of this series before I read this one, but it does have a recap in the beginning that kind of gives you an idea of what happened. And I also found in the back, there's a who's who in Inkworld. So that has also helped because it helps me remind myself how these characters are connected, because I don't always remember all of the connections between the characters. And I can't tell you anything about what's happening in this one because that would be massive spoilers for the first 3. But there is a time jump in this one, and things are happening, and it's starting to pick up. I think it was a little slow to get into, and I also remember from reading the 3rd book that I remember it took me a long time to read the 3rd book because I didn't like the audiobook narrator, who I believe is the same one for this one, so I haven't bothered buying it. I did not have free access to it, but I'm certainly not going to buy it if I remember not liking the audiobook for the 3rd book, and it's the same narrator. Because I know I didn't listen to it. I ended up physically reading it because I just could not listen to the audiobook. And I just remember it taking me longer to read. And I remember thinking it's because it's translated. And the way it's translated, it just, for whatever reason in my brain, does not flow as smoothly as other translated works I've read or books that started in English. So I think I'm reading it a little bit slower, but I think now that things are starting to click as to who everybody is, and I don't have to keep pausing to try to figure that out, it is speeding up. I have to finish this because I gave myself a reward. So this is the priority book for the rest of this vlog. So we'll see if I can get it done. I also started Witchwood. I made it 1 chapter. I don't know if I did that on Sunday or on Monday, but I'm going to mention it. I'm still on that first chapter. Like, haven't picked this up since I read the first chapter, so I don't have a lot of thoughts on this. Today, I started Top Marks for Murder, which is book 8 in the Murder Most and Ladylike series, and I made it to page 212. So I'm making really good progress in this. In this, Daisy and Hazel are back at school, and one of their dorm mates is looking out the window and sees what looks to be a man choke a woman, and she believes the woman is murdered. And so Daisy and Hazel, along with the rest of their dorm mates, decide to investigate. And I'm not loving this one as much as I liked the other ones. I feel like one of the things I've really liked about this series is the growth I've seen in Daisy. And I feel like being back at school in this one, because they've had a few stories and mysteries now where they weren't at school, has definitely brought out some of the stuff I didn't like in Daisy, and it's almost like she's regressed a little bit. So I'm hoping that between the end of this book and the 9th book, which is the final book, we'll see Daisy kind of snap out of that. I feel like Hazel's growth is still there in a lot of ways, and I hope to continue to see that as well. I'm not massively invested in the mystery, which isn't helping. This feels like it's going to be very much in the 3-star range. And so I'm very curious to see where this one takes me and where book 9 takes me, because I think if I don't see that continuation of Daisy's growth and I just see more regression, this would probably be a series I unhaul. And that is interesting because I've really enjoyed this series. And like I said, seeing the growth of the girls throughout the series. So we'll see where this one goes. And then my last update is that I've made progress on This Beast. And I am now on page 587. I should finish this in the next 2 days. I only have to listen to 2 hours a day, and I think that's pretty easy for me to do. So this is definitely a priority. It's the last book, I believe, on my phase out TBR that I need to finish to complete the phase we're on. So also kind of a priority, even though I don't get any punishments for not finishing it. And a lot of people tend to roll it into the following month. So we'll see where I end up with this. That's currently where I'm at. I don't know what else I'm going to do. Like, I'm going to finish Top Marks for Murder. And I'm going to finish Inkworld, or The Color of Revenge. And I'm going to finish Towers of Midnight. And I really want to finish Mistborn. We'll see if I get back to Witchwood. And then I would still have an Indigenous LGBT sci-fi anthology, Death Set Sail, and P.S. I Hate You. So we'll see what I end up getting to. Also with phase out, I think I might make it every 3 months instead of every other, because it's a lot. Because right now, if I do it the way I did last year, I would have phase out in January, my queer book club in February, phase out in March, my queer book club in April. And I know that might seem silly because it would mean in March I don't have anything, but in April I'd have both. But I also have some ideas for some other readathons I might like to do. And I can't do that if I'm doing my queer book club and phase out. So let me know what y'all think. I would love some feedback because I'm toying with this because, like I said, I do have some ideas for some other readathons that I would like to do. And it's a lot to be taking on, especially given that I know, at least based on the first 10 days of this administration, that my mental health is probably not going to be something I'm going to have a lot of control over the next few years. So give me some thoughts and feedback about what you think. Because I do have ideas for continuing phase out your TBR past phase 10. And I don't know. Like I said, let me know what you think in the comment section below, because I could use some feedback. Like I said, I'm assuming you can see that my brain's kind of all over the place right now, which is what happens when I'm really, really anxious and depressed and stuff. So yeah, I'm going to wrap this clip up though, because I have other videos I need to film. So I'm going to go do that, and I will check back in with you on February 1st to let you know how I did. So we are officially in February, which means it is time to wrap up the last vlog I have for January. And well, I read a lot the last few days, so let's just dive right in. First, I finished Top Marks for Murder, and I gave this 3.75 stars. This was definitely not my favorite in the series. I did not like some of the regression we saw with Daisy, though I feel like throughout the book that did get better. I definitely think Hazel's character has grown much stronger and more willing to speak out for herself since the first book, and I've loved seeing that growth. I think we've also seen some growth in some of the side characters in this series, and I've really enjoyed that. The mystery in this one wasn't my favorite either, although it did have some interesting aspects, and I'm still invested enough in the series to continue it, and I plan to do so next month, which would be me finally finishing the series because I only have one book left. So we'll see if I can get to that in February. I'd hoped to get to it in January. I ran out of time. Then I read Witchwood, and I gave this 4.25 stars. So this is the third book in the Ravenfall series. So in this series, we follow Anna and Colin. In the first book, Colin shows up at the inn, which is run by Anna's parents, looking for answers about his family. Anna's family is a little bit different. They have all of these various abilities, and Anna isn't sure how hers is useful given that she can foresee death. So we see both kids struggling with a lot in the first book. They have grown a lot since then. In this one, they end up visiting Anna's aunt, and some things go down that leave them maybe a little bit in over their heads, and they have to work with her cousin Leah to get to the bottom of what's going on. I took a minute to get into this one and get back into the series, but once I did not want to put it down. I actually had to force myself to put it down and go to sleep because I knew I was not going to be able to stay up for another 40 minutes to finish it. I was just too tired. I really like learning more about magic in this universe because we get to see different kinds of magic when Anna goes and visits her aunt. There was something that happened in this book that I thought was really obvious, but there were definitely some twists and turns to it that I didn't see coming, so I enjoyed that. I'm still having a lot of fun with the series. It has a lot of really good vibes, and I know the first book and this one were both set around Halloween, even though it doesn't necessarily feel like Halloween, because just the way they're written kind of gives off a slightly spooky vibe. And I really like how Anna and Colin's relationship kind of changed in this one, because there's a way they could have taken it, and I'm glad that they didn't, or they don't seem to be going in that direction. So I really enjoyed that. I'm definitely invested in this series, and I'm very happy to say that at the back of this book, it mentioned that Ravengard is coming out in the fall of 2025. So I won't have long to wait to be able to continue on with the series, which is awesome. Then I read Color of Revenge, and I gave this 3 stars. So this is the 4th book in the Inkworld series, and while it wasn't bad, it wasn't great either. I feel this was wholly unnecessary. So in, I want to say 2019, 2020, I read the trilogy in the series, and it felt very wrapped up, very well ended, and there was nothing more to say. And it is demonstrated that I was correct in that with this book. And I think it's been many, 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 many years since she wrote a book in the series, and for whatever reason decided to continue it, because I read them when they had been around for a long time. And I just don't know. I mean, one, it's been a minute since I've read the Inkworld series, obviously, so I wasn't as familiar with all of the characters in the story and all of that. But 2, it lacked some of the things I really liked about the original trilogy. And it is not necessary to read this. You've definitely read a complete story. This is just kind of almost like a one-shot that is in the same world, but doesn't, I mean, it ties into the original story, but it also doesn't. It's really hard to explain without getting into spoilers, and I don't think I can say even who we're following because spoilers. I just feel like this was missing a lot of the things that I liked about the first 3, and it was just really unnecessary. It did not need to be written. I don't think it really fits with the other stories, and it is definitely not a book I ever see myself rereading, and actually makes me want to reread the first 3 less. So not my favorite, but it still wasn't awful. So 3 stars. There was nothing inherently bad about it. I don't know, it was missing stuff I would have liked to see, and I just really truly felt like it was not needed, and I don't understand why we got this book, because it very much feels out of place with the rest of the series. Then I finished Towers of Midnight, and I gave this 4 stars. This is the 13th book in the Wheel of Time series, and I did not enjoy this one as much as book 12, but there was a lot of things that happened in this one. In this series, we're following a group of individuals, including a like chosen one, who have kind of the fate of the world resting in their hands, and we're seeing all sorts of different points of view from both sides of the kind of war, or just sides of the argument, I guess. And obviously the story's wrapping up, so I can't really say much, but a lot of different things happened in this one. There was actually a really, really shocking moment that happened to a character that I really, really don't enjoy, but I was stunned by it and surprised that it happened to this particular, like, I wasn't expecting it to happen at all, let alone to this character. So that was interesting, because I think I felt sympathy for them and wasn't expecting to. There were some reveals that I was wondering when we were going to get to them, and we have finally gotten them, so that was nice. And I have no idea how the series is going to wrap up, but I'm invested in it enough now to continue it on and see where we go in the 14th and final book in the series. Then I finished my reread of Mistborn, and I gave this 4.25 stars. Y'all, 2019 me gave this 2 stars. It took them an entire month to read, and it put them in the biggest reading slump they've ever been in their entire life. 2025 me also took almost a month to read it, mainly because I started out at reading like 20 pages a day because I was nervous about this, but I ripped through the last like 210, 220 pages last night and was just so engrossed. I loved the end. It starts a bit slow for me, hence 4.25. But if you took like the second half of this book, it's 5 stars. No complaints. So that averaged out to a 4.25 for me. I am so invested in the story and where it is going. I do understand why it didn't click with 2019 me, because I wasn't reading fantasy. So this was like a lot, and I certainly wasn't reading anything political, because I just wasn't reading anything like this. And so I understand why 2019 me didn't like it, but I've read a lot of books that are much more complex when it comes to fantasy and magic and stuff since then. And I've heard a lot of people say, if you're going to start with adult fantasy, this is where you should start. And I kind of get it now. I just think that I had no fantasy really, for the most part, under my belt. And so I was just so overwhelmed by everything that was thrown into the series that I just wasn't ready for it. And I read it at the wrong time. But now is the right time, and I cannot wait to continue on with the series. It is going to be a very, very long February, because I will not be picking this book up till March, the second book, because we're doing Mistborn in January and February, or the Final Empire, whichever you would like to call it. So if you want to join us, you are more than welcome. The link to my Discord is in the description below, where we have a channel where we're chatting about it. And we will be reading book 2 in March and April. So there's still plenty of time to join in if you would like to do a reread or just join in for the first time. We're reading our way through the Cosmere, so we will eventually get to all of the books. We're just starting here because this is where Sanderson recommended we start. So I love this and cannot wait to continue. And then the last book I finished in January, which I believe is like book 55 or 56 for the month, and my very first and only 5-star, Circle of Love. So this is obviously a children's picture book, and it follows Molly. Yes, Molly at the Intertribal Community Center, and she goes around introducing us to all of the people she loves and tells us a bit about how they make her feel. And we see her do various activities with them, and it's just really sweet and amazing. I'm gonna read this from the description. It says, through tender prose and radiant artwork, author Monique Gray Smith and illustrator Nicole Neinhart show how there is always room for others in our lives. Circle of Love is a story celebrating family, friends, community, and most of all, love. Everyone is welcome in the circle. And that is exactly what it does. And I thought that was just such a brilliant way to put it. It's just showing the love of friends, of family, of community, and how everyone is welcome. And it really stresses love is love. And it also has in the back at the end some really good information, because we have an author's note and then stuff about community centers a section about culture, because this is obviously Indigenous, a section on LGBTQIA 2S+, and 2S, in case you don't know, is Two-Spirit, and it tells you in here what Two-Spirit is if you don't know. An activity that you can do with your little ones, a glossary for some of the Indigenous words in case you don't know what they mean or how to say them, and then a note from Cynthia Lytick Smith, the author curator of Heart Drum, which is the, I believe, publisher of this book. And I loved every minute of it. I really thought it was a well thought out children's picture book. It has such a great message, and the art is just stunning. Like, it's such a pretty book, and I absolutely want to get this for one of the little ones in my life. I think they'll really, really enjoy it, and I would highly recommend it if you do have a little one. And then I did start a book that I didn't finish in January, and that's Love Beyond Body, Space, and Time, and I'm only a couple stories in, so I don't have much to say because this is an Indigenous LGBT sci-fi anthology. So I think I liked I've read 2 stories. The others are like introductions. And so I've read 2 stories so far, and I liked one, I think. Yeah, I've read 2. I liked one, and I wasn't a huge fan of the other. So we'll see where I end up with this one. So that was the end of my January. Like I said, lots of books read. Oh, so many books read. I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep up this pace for the entire year, but I feel like February has a good chance of being very high volume as well, because I have a lot of Who HQ books on my TBR, and those are just going to be books that I can go like this with. So we're going to see how February goes for me, but that was the end of my January. How did your January go? Let me know in the comment section below. All of my social media is linked in the description below if you'd like to come chat with me. If you've made it this far in the video, leave me various heart emojis in honor of my 5-star book. Like this video and subscribe to my channel, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye!